I'm Amy Syed.
I'm Sean Collins.
And this is Numbers and Narratives.
Brad, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Brad, if you could summarize what we talked about in a tweet or a small tweet thread, what did we talk about today?
Yeah, so we talked about the basics, first versus third-party cookies and deprecation of that and what it means. Shortcut means nothing. We also talked about very quickly server-side versus client-side tracking, which is, again, I think it's table stakes for most. But then we got into fun stuff with Klaviyo AI and personalizing email and SMS outreach, getting into Facebook and Instagram shops. Do they perform better than Instagram shops? You might need to tune in to listen to hear my answer.
Do you mind giving a introduction to who you are, your background, and what Elevar is and what you do there?
I'll keep it short, but thanks for having me, Ibby. Yeah, long and short of it, my background, I've been in the startup world for 17 years, 2 different SaaS businesses, all e-commerce for 17 years. Elevar, most recently, I started about 7.5 years ago, so 2017, fully bootstrapped. We serve really that small niche that sits in between engineers and marketers, so all in the world of tracking. So ensuring that data from a brand's website gets to different destinations that they need that data to go to, whether it's Meta, Klaviyo, Google Ads, GA4, etc. And we do that today primarily through server-side tracking and identification techniques, and then getting into more audience cohorts, audience one-to-one personalization as we really get past what I think now is table stakes of, can you send 100% of conversions to Google or Facebook? Yes, that was table stakes. For us 2 years ago. Now can we enhance ROI by recognizing more returning users to boost abandoned browse flows, things of that nature through Klaviyo, Attentive, etc. Again, to me, that's table stakes. So now we're getting that world of where AI is going to really be driving us into a new frontier. So that's myself and Elevar in a nutshell. Happy to peel that onion back any further if you want.
And Ibby, I'll just say, when I was at a Barrel in primarily Shopify agency, Elevar was like a mandatory app for every client that came on. Like, that was part of our onboarding process, was we're going to integrate Elevar. And so that's how I actually met Brad a few years back. He was, I don't know if he was doing this for everyone or if I just found his email address and abused it, but I emailed him anytime I had a question, and he was always quick to hop on and help me troubleshoot, and it was great.
Yeah, email's always open. I still get in support these days as well and help out where needed. So yeah, I think as a founder, that's how you keep your ears close to the ground and understanding what are the pain points, what questions do partners or customers have. So I think it's a really critical skill, whether you're a SaaS business or you're an e-com business. And I know many of our customers, many of the founders, they do the same thing. They want to talk to customers that are buying and talk to their VIPs and use that information to, again, ideate on different marketing techniques and product changes, et cetera.
So that's probably the perfect spot to start is, the pain points and the questions and kind of where people most acutely need Elevar's support. Like, when new brands are coming and installing Elevar and getting set up, what are the biggest pain points that you're solving, and like why are they struggling so much with it?
Yeah, it's a loaded question, so I'll try not to go on a too long of a monologue here. It's the world that we live in. It's where we have to be somewhat of a chameleon. Of every year, we need to change our colors a little bit. So 4 years ago, Sean, when you and I were working together, back then it was just, hey, my tracking's broken. These JavaScripts are conflicting and my conversion information is not getting to Google Ads. So how can we do that? It's like, okay, just use a data layer and use Google Tag Manager, and that'll get everything cleaned up. And then it transitioned into, I have what I call the Viore report. There was a spreadsheet that Jamie years ago she sent, and this was very common. A lot of brands were doing this, where they'd have column A would be Facebook, Google, TikTok, Snapchat, and then column B, C, through X would be page views, product views, add to carts. They'd be measuring and pulling out information of, okay, Google says 1,000 add to carts and Facebook says 800. And again, that's more into the, okay, how do you ensure that each channel is getting the same event data, and that transitions into that world of server-side tracking. Again, I'll just to keep it brief, today the biggest challenges that we are seeing and hearing are consent, privacy, attribution. With cookies, there's the headlines that are out there that cookies are being deprecated and going away, and what's that going to do to attribution? But most of that's clickbait. It's really difference of first-party versus third-party cookies. Third-party cookies, which Chrome is deprecating this year, Safari deprecated those, I think 4 years ago in 2020 with ITP. So anyways, that's kind of like the world that we live in. It's just people are there's a bigger focus on profitability, finding new customers, profitable, what channel is going to drive that, what's going to have the highest return, and what mix the brands need to use. So that's really the world that we live in, is just ensuring that every platform that they are using is reporting most as accurate as it can, and more importantly, it's operating the most efficient that it can. So again, gets into the identification and server-side tracking world.
And then just to ask the very basic follow-up that I think you'll need to understand for the rest of this conversation, server-side tracking, what is it and why is it different than client-side tracking, and why is that important?
Yeah, client-side tracking is, picture you're installing a new vendor, they give you a PDF, they say, hey, copy the script and paste it at, as close to the top of your opening head and your theme.liquid as possible. That enables what's called client-side tracking. It's a tag or a script or a pixel. The nomenclature can be confusing. Server-side tracking this is where there's a little bit of a nuance here. So some solutions out there, including some of what we do at Elevar, is you use a quote-unquote client, which is the browser. So you do client-side data collection, but server-side processing. So you still collect the page view from the browser, but you are sending that event outside the browser. So from Elevar servers to Facebook Cappy servers, server-side. The next layer to that is actually server-side data collection and server-side processing, which is also what Elevar does. So it takes everything out of the browser. So this is where you get into webhooks and other integrations that platforms like Shopify offer, where you are ingesting data from the host server, which Shopify is the host server for everybody that's on Shopify. You ingest that data and then you route that to platforms, and you have to manipulate it. It's not as easy as you just ingest that data and just send it that way, because it's going to miss attribution information, cookies, things of that nature. So there are some nuances there, but in general, client side is just browser, so you're susceptible to ad blockers, consent issues, bugs, delays. Server side is get outside the browser, so that's what allows us to, in the Elevar world, guarantee we can send 100% of conversions, because we're collecting that data through server-side processing, or server-side data collection and server-side processing.
Got it. And just to keep on this train, actually, just because it's interesting, I've seen quite a lot of discourse, on e-com Twitter, on sort of like marketing Twitter, about folks freaking out about the fact that Chrome is deprecating this, moving to server side. I guess, can you explain quickly for someone like me or someone that doesn't know as much about this info, why that matters so much, why people are freaking out, and why they might not need to because of the advent of server-side tracking?
Yeah, I will start with asking you guys, what percentage of traffic across brands that potentially you work with, what percentage of their traffic do you think comes from Safari on a desktop or mobile iPhone?
I would think a significant amount comes on Safari mobile. I would think a pretty low amount on Safari desktop.
Yeah. But in combination, greater than or less than 50%?
In combination, less than, because I just assume that mobile, Safari mobile and Safari desktop, you've got other browsers on mobile too. So maybe slightly less than, but close to.
Yeah.
It sounds like it might be more than, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I was setting you up there to say more than, but that didn't work. But yeah, in general, most brands, what we see, it's 50, 60, 70% of their traffic is coming in through Safari or other browsers that are using WebKit. So Internet Explorer follows that now, Firefox and these others, they follow it. So what that means, I mentioned this a minute ago, Apple or WebKit was already blocking third-party cookies and the cross-site reading or just the cross-site scripting that they were doing. It's been that way for anyway listening, don't quote me on this, but it's been a long time. It's like 4 or 5 years. I can't remember exactly. I think it's 2020.
So the iOS 14 update that they did that with?
It was before. Yeah, it was before iOS 14. Yeah. So the reason why I'm saying that is majority of your traffic has already been acting in the same way that Google is now Chrome is rolling out when they deprecate in 2025 or whatever the final date is. It seems to move around a little bit. So nobody really talked about it. Nobody noticed it. And that's our opinion. It's going to be the same. So what it actually is let's say you go to Cuts Clothing and you're looking at t-shirts and they have all their trackers on the site. And then you go to the Weather Channel or you go to CNN or any other site that has some sort of dynamic ad. So they have banner ads that are flashing everywhere. If you are in a browser where third-party cookies are not blocked, then what used to happen is you would go to the Weather Channel and you'd see all Cuts Clothing remarketing ads or any other site that you visited. Excuse me. Now with Google going away, and again, it was already happened that way in Safari, is that very narrow specific use case is no longer going to happen. Now, that doesn't mean remarketing is dead. It just means that specific type of display remarketing isn't going to be the same way that it doesn't function the same way. And if you're listening, you can go test this yourself. Pull up Safari and pull up Chrome. Go to your favorite website or favorite websites. Go browse around, add a few things to cart, and then go to Weather Channel or CNN or any of these other sites that have dynamic remarketing ads, and just see the difference. You will see different ads served to you. And that's what you see in Safari today is what you'll end up seeing in Chrome. But I think for most today, that type of display remarketing is such a low percentage of overall revenue. There's different ways to combat that anyways.
And so do you think let's say there's a marketer who is passionate about display ads for whatever reason, they really love a click-through rate below 0.2% and really think that no last click conversions is a great way to spend their money. Is the solution then, as Chrome goes to deprecate this, that they just need to build custom audiences through a different mechanism and then everything will still function as is?
Sort of. So with Google specifically, they have been making a pretty large push for what they call their enhanced conversions, which is sending a lead. So it can be anytime you collect an email and you trigger a conversion event, is sending that to Google with an email address. Google has YouTube and Gmail, and we're all using some sort of Google product. So they have a lot of direct accessibility to identifying a user, as well as their modeling, which has advanced quite a bit. And then that could be the way that they are going to, they don't really care about the cookie anymore. They're going to use other ways to do their identification and matching back or guessing what that, the Weather Channel browser, did they view these specific products. But it's my opinion on it, it's such a narrow use case and it's somewhat of an old use case that it's not even worth worrying about for 99% of brands.
Yeah, it seems like and this could be completely just the experience I have had, and so I have no stats to back this up, but it does seem like investment in display ads has withered as brands have focused more on the idea of how do we get profitability, how do we focus on LTV and retention as opposed to just spend and grow all the time.
The use cases, I think if you, at least what we see with our customer base, larger brands, bigger budgets, they want to create surround sound around their brand. So anywhere somebody goes, they want to create that surround sound of someone, they're just there. They're always present. That is where display can come in really handy. But if for brands that maybe aren't quite to that scale yet, where it's very much every dollar matters and every dollar needs to return 3, 4, 5x, that's where you may not just want to just essentially throw money at that, throw money into the wind just for that surround sound impact or surround sound effect. But there's with display, and you have Roku and all sorts of different advertising mechanisms today, that even what I call display, it's changing so rapidly today anyways.
Got it. One question, I guess, going back to something that Sean just mentioned with, people switching focus, profitability mattering, a bunch of this, people moving away from just outright spend. What are some strategic shifts that you've seen with clients that you work with, folks that are in your network, on ways that they're like strategies that they're using, on the ground tactics, and sort of like that? What's that strategic shift been for your customer base?
Yeah, it's a great question. Ironically, I've been hearing a little bit more that Meta shops, so Facebook, Instagram shops, is crushing for net new customer acquisition. And these are some big brands. There was one conversation I've had, and I've had 3 to 5 of these combos where you wouldn't really predict that. And one combo was, everyone's tripping over their feet trying to figure out how to get TikTok shops to work. But the opportunity right now is Meta shops is crushing, and that's part of Advantage Plus and the whole closed wall garden where you can go through. But keep in mind, this also plays into lower price points, more impulsive purchases where you don't need to go do more research. So that's obviously just an asterisk to put there. But that is one thing that I heard, which was a little bit interesting to me.
And just from like a user perspective, very crystal clear. Meta shop, Facebook shop, Instagram shop. It is when you see an ad and you can swipe up and I can buy a watch or buy a shirt, or right as I'm scrolling through my feed or scrolling through my like stories, right?
Yeah. So in Instagram, there's actually like a cart now, so you can go and access your cart. So you can go see products that you added to cart, and again, it's an app, so your cart's not going to quote unquote disappear after a couple of days because cookies are lost. So it's essentially a persistent cart. Yeah, that's
interesting.
You can tag products and then add them to cart right within the app, and then purchase directly within the app.
It's almost like it's a completely different, like, and I don't know if that's the way you see it, but it seems to me that it's like, it's not just a switch within like Meta's advertising, like an advertising strategy that somebody would have on Meta, but almost a new channel itself, right? Like with TikTok shop, with Meta shop, that's super interesting. It's almost like hey, like this is a new channel that's been working for us, more than like hey, like we're switching away. Like obviously they're probably reallocating spend, but strategically it's kind of a different thing.
Yeah, I mean, Meta is still the number one channel for new customer acquisition. That's where all the spend is going. Still the lion's share of the spend. So it's really just a bucket within Meta. So you just want to focus. I'm not suggesting anyone does this, but with the Meta shop, so that's what I'm saying is it is a part of your budget. It's a small part or a large part of driving to the specific campaign, which is the Meta shops, again, where it's in that walled closed garden for Meta. So they're getting all the information from customers.
And with that persistent cart, is there any ability for Klaviyo to tap into that and so still be triggering abandoned carts and that sort of thing? Or is it walled off enough that it's a Meta shop and Meta is the only channel that's able to retarget off of that and kind of hone in?
Yeah, today I'm not aware of an integration that supports that use case. That'd be awesome though.
So that means it's just for post-purchase then? Because like I assume that it just like integrates with Shopify, and so when somebody like buys their, you get their email, you get all the information, and it's just like it's almost like there's no abandoned cart, but like you can do retention flows, you can still track. Do you have any info? I'm kind of curious, when someone is more likely, you mentioned that these platforms are a little bit more impulsive than maybe, I don't know if you call it conventional advertising, conventional acquisition strategies, but do you see a huge, any sort of detriment to LTV, any detriment to retention, because they're a little bit more like, hey, I just saw an ad, so I'm just going to click it and buy it immediately, a little bit less like thinking time? Does that affect metrics down the line? Anything that you think or anything that you've heard on that front?
I'm not close enough directly to that whole the LTV, the full customer life cycle, and what that looks like. But I think what I have seen is, for a few that I have looked at personally, there's very little crossover of the customer first acquires on Meta Shops, and then they end up buying through the online store after, which was really, it was odd. It was like a weird, I would not have hypothesized that. But anyway, so that was something that's interesting, and I think that goes along the lines of, you look at these as their own channels. So just like TikTok Shop or Amazon or others, they have their own channels and they're different customers, and the customers don't overlap as much as we might think they do in the omni-channel sense.
That is really interesting. I saw a funny meme the other day that was like, the most boomer thing about me is I say make all my big purchases on a computer, even if I found it on my phone.
I saw one this morning that was booking airline tickets online is a big screen activity, not a small screen activity. It's like big screen versus small screen, which I thought was hilarious.
But like, I mean, to your point, like when I see an ad on Instagram, if I'm going to shop, I would still go to the Shopify store separately. Like I would open my Google app and go to Shopify, to that store, instead of shopping through the ad itself.
So you have the phone in one hand, and you pull up the laptop in the other, and you're pulling it up just so you can see it because your eyesight isn't quite good enough.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be able to click around. I want to be able to read the descriptions. I'm going to judge them based on the interface I have and the apps they have. You know, I want to be judgmental for a little while.
Yeah.
Sean, how do you, and actually Brad, you too, for both of you, the thing that I think strikes me here that I always do is, like, if I'm going to see a brand advertised to me, because there's a lot of crap, right? Like I think I looked at a watch recently. I was like, oh, like maybe I'm going to buy a new watch for myself or something. And I just keep getting bombarded with watch ads, and some of them look good. But, you know, I don't know if these are, you know, Amazon dropship, or it's a nice brand that I've never heard of, or if it's something that, you know, is a bajillion dollars that I can't afford. I always just go and, you know, look up sentiment, look up information about that brand that I've been served an ad for. But it sounds like folks that are, I keep reading more and more about folks that are in like my younger brother's generation, for example. They're not reading like Google product reviews. They're listening to influencers on TikTok, on Instagram. They're buying their products, you know, they're doing sort of like product research that way. Like one of the biggest drivers of New York City restaurants are now influencers, and it's just a lot of folks that are seeing it on TikTok, seeing it on Instagram, and sort of getting their recommendations that way. I wonder if that's kind of like the generational split that's driving it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's definitely that plays a big part in certain segments. I think a few others, just as we're prepping for the Elevar Summit in a couple of weeks, and some of the panels and talks, and Josh from Aventus, who they're a customer support service organization, and we were just talking more about conversion, like analytics, so extracting insights out from customers, so voice of customer data. And he still goes back to the simple, hey, did you know if you just have a phone number, a customer support phone number on your website, that your conversion rate will go up by X? It's like proven 90% of the time. So I think, speaking from just personal and maybe some of that testing that I've seen in the past, because back in the day, that was a test I would run often. I think going to your point about the drop shipping sites and is it legit? Do you trust it or not? Like that, we might move more to that, the trust factor of, okay, we know that we can see people are smart enough to realize that the UGC feeds, you know, those can be easily manipulated. But is there an about us? So can I resonate with a brand? Is there a phone number that I can contact and actually talk to somebody? Are they a real company? So there's probably some of those small things that maybe just go into that trust factor, so someone doesn't have to go offsite. And then I think also it'd be like you mentioned, we all know that people are using TikTok as a quote unquote alternative to Google search. So going to TikTok and searching, and going to Instagram to search for the product or the brand that they're looking at, and just ensuring that you have coverage there is another trust factor.
That's fascinating. Ibby, I do have to know, when you are searching and trying to evaluate products, do you run your own sentiment analysis scraper across these reviews to find out what's up?
I now do. So we recently, so Brad, just to give you an example, like we've got like a social listening survey, so I can like ingest data about different brands from across the internet.
Yeah.
One of the recent ones that I did was like, I'm kind of a car geek. I grew up in Nebraska, so I got a driver's license really early, and that kind of like spawned like I don't know. I'm one of the only people I think in New York that drives like an old manual transmission vehicle around. And Tesla released a Cybertruck recently, and it gets like it's really polarizing, right? And like the thing that I keep wondering, I don't know, we put this on Twitter Twitter and LinkedIn a couple days ago, but the thing that I was repeatedly wondering was like, what do people actually dislike about it? Like, what are the bad qualities? Because it gets lost in the noise of like, I don't like Elon, or I don't like Tesla, or I don't like EVs. And so, yeah, I've started doing that more. I don't do it for every product because it's like a little bit too high lift, but that's one of the features that I want to implement is like making that easier soon.
So what was the result on the Cybertruck?
Honestly, a lot of people I think that dislike it are conventional truck buyers that are like, this is not for me. Like, this is not like, electric motors are not very good for conventional towing. And I think a lot of it is like, this is going to be driven by people who are like doing it for the image, which I also, I guess, understand. And I guess the third one is like, yeah, I think Tesla has like panel gap and build quality issues, and people are like, it's going to fall apart. All the bumpers are going to like come off and like do something. So those are, I think, the top three reasons.
Do you have a Cybertruck? That's the other question.
Not me. No. I live in New York. Like, I have one tiny old ass car.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Nice.
And it's the only car on this podcast. I also live in New York. There is no car here. So everyone who's listening, you need to go to this. Every friend I have who goes every year comes back raving about how incredible Elevar Summit is. So give us a sneak peek. What's on the docket this year?
Oh man, we have a wide range. So the first day we'll have three or four main sessions, and it really stretches the gamut. So we'll have Tyler and Brandon from Jobby Coffee, Tyler from BizCap Media. They're going to do live video ad, just going through a framework of what makes just kick-ass video ads that are very long tail. So Tyler, they've been doing Rise Superfood for many years, and Rise is just there. Yeah, have you had? Actually, I have it right here. I have the mushroom coffee right here. Have you had the Rise Superfood mushroom coffee?
No, but this is with an endorsement like this, I have to.
Yeah. So anyway, so they're going to go through that, do some what they've seen win. We have a session on AI. We'll be going through 6 core functions of an e-com business and laddering up. So 1, 2, 3. So bottom of the ladder will be, I'm not doing anything in this function with AI. So what's an easy way to get in, and all the way up to the third step of the ladder, which is very advanced. So the goal there is to help people walk away with something tangible that they can implement, again, like depending on where they are in the business. Obviously, it's Elevar, so we're going to have the standard future of data collection and data analysis. And then we have on Tuesday, we'll be going through some one-to-one personalization techniques with Viore, with omni-channel, again, retail store, online, and future of data activation. Just a lot of it's a good mix of experts and brands, and so we're still curating different panels. But again, it crosses a pretty wide. It's not just about conversion tracking, because we'd have about 2 people register if that's the only thing that we talked about at our Elevar Summit.
Yeah, that would be one very nerdy audience base if it was just tracking.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's awesome. And so, speaking of personalization and AI, I know you plug into Klaviyo and can do tracking there. So as they've kind of rolled out some of their AI suite, what are you seeing, and kind of what's your take on their tooling and how this is going to change the industry and what brands have to be doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's just taking Elevar and Klaviyo out of it as what's Klaviyo going to do? What are we going to do? I think generally speaking, the market is going to pull better email and SMS marketing out of us. So out of the tech world. I'm sure you all have experienced it, where you've bought something, you haven't gotten the shipment yet, and you're getting bombarded with email blast before you even gotten it. Maybe you have a late shipment. So your sentiment, you're probably like kind of annoyed that you haven't gotten it yet, but you're getting marketed to buy this thing that you already bought, but it hasn't been shipped to you. And so I think just emails overloaded where it's just a batch and blast, and you might be segmented into the 30, 90 day, whatever it is, but you don't last 90 days. You just unsubscribe because you're not ready to buy again. So there's so many examples of that where, again, I think with a focus on profitability, technology advancing so much faster, AI is the easy crutch to fall back on, but I truly believe that it is going to help power a lot of this, because you can't have, unless you have a team of 10 people that are only writing personalized emails and building segments and building flows, you can't, almost all customer or all brands, again, e-com or any business for that matter, just can't do that. So I do think that's going to get pulled out of the market, where I'm marketed to as I'm a VIP at Viore, and they're going to know I'm a VIP. So the messaging that I get and my email and SMS is going to be very different than what my wife might get or what my friends might get that have never purchased before. So that to me, I think big 30,000 foot view. I think if we're having this talk a year from now, looking back, I do think we're going to look at, man, there's been so much progress in the ability to just take those stepping stones of just better personalization through email and SMS, just to save the health of your list, and not just get some of your best customers to unsubscribe because they're ready to, they know they're going to come back. They don't want to get bombarded every day. But two, also just ensuring that you're maximizing the ROI on those new net to file customers that maybe have not purchased yet.
Yeah. Put another way, like, we know what these customers want. It's just that we can't talk to them at an individual level. And I think AI, give it, you basically can look at what have they bought before? What do people similar to them buy? What kind of content will, resonate with that person? And for every shot on goal you have, i.e. every email that you send, like, you just have a higher probability of that person coming back or engaging with that in any regard. And that just increases the probability that they're going to do so again in the future.
Yeah. And one thing specific to Elevar, that now that we have 700 plus data sets from Buxton, which is more in the offline retail world, and movement data, is there are the use cases, like, we know if somebody has been to, this isn't literal, but actually it is literal, but not literal that Viore is doing this per se, but I'm just using them as a brick and mortar example, and because I'm probably one of their best customers. But Viore, we could look at everyone has been coming to their site for the last X number of days, and then say, 20% of these have been competitor shopping. They've been in a physical, Lululemon store or some other retail location. So that is a red alert, potentially churn risk. So that could inform different marketing strategies. So, and I think you guys even do a little bit of this of just building better profiles of customers versus just what did they do on site. So as we get into advancing, again, blending more of that offline, taking a stick figure, first party data, and making it 3D with more of that real world data, is you can enable more of these, hey, some of your best customers have been in a competitor store the last 30 days, maybe hit them up or give them a VIP experience.
That's really cool, because I think, omni-channel and retail and integrating retail and digital has been a struggle for a long time. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Buxton, which for everyone out there, Buxton recently acquired Elevar, which is super, super cool and exciting. And I think we were talking before the show, so Elevar is going to continue to operate pretty independently. But, when you kind of pair the two of you up, that's like a supercharged team to be able to get these insights and to make every interaction actionable.
Yeah. Well, before it all came together, when I was getting a download on the data available that they have, again, they're very historically, they've been around 30 years, very focused on brick and mortar retail. So Warby Parker is both, but the Nordstrom Racks and American Eagles and Anthropologies, et cetera. But now thinking like, okay, we have access to all of this data and to blend it with online digital data, which is where we live. There's just a lot of possibilities. Where just being a data guy, I was like, this is amazing. There's a million use cases I can think of that can be beneficial to marketers.
Yeah, super cool. Okay, well, I think that's probably a good spot for us to kind of wrap up. Before we go, I want to say congratulations, Brad. I know you just recorded your 100th episode of the Conversion Tracking Playbook.
Thanks.
Which is no small feat. And everyone should go listen. We'll put that in the show notes, but that's a really cool podcast that has super actionable insights on how to track things better, how to think about digital analytics a little bit better. So I can't recommend that enough to every marketer out there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything you want to plug, or if people want to work with you, how can they get in touch with you to learn more from you, to work with Elevar?
Yeah, just hit me up on LinkedIn, Brad Redding, or brad@getelevar.com. Happy to help answer any questions. And yeah, LinkedIn is generally anything that's going on in our world, try to share as much as we can. That's part of our flywheel, is sharing everything that we learn with the world. So whether it's through LinkedIn or podcasts, wanted to, just connect with me, and happy to help.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Brad, that was great, man. I so appreciate you coming on and juggling the scheduling with us. This was so fun.